Hello there, everybody. Now, every island has their own stories and myths about mo'o. And the mo'o, or the lizard that I'm talking about, are not these geckos that run around in our house that make noise at night while chasing bugs. The particular mo'o that I'm talking about are these supernatural beings that had existed in Hawaii long before the Hawaiians came. And they were giant lizards, okay, and part human form. And that's the way they revealed themselves to people. So they're still around, and their presence is still found here in Hawaii. We like to think of the mo'o as protectors of water, okay? And there are several famous mo'o here on Oahu and all of the different islands that protect bodies of water like the ocean. Some of them like to protect fresh waters, and in fact, a lot of the waterfalls that has fresh water coming in, normally there's mo'o in there too. And on the island of Molokai, we have several places that are famous for their mo'o. My favorite beach growing up as a kid was Mo'omomi, and this is a beach, a beautiful bay that apparently a mo'o, a benevolent mo'o, left a pearl as a gift to the people. There's also another famous mo'o out in Kamalo who's still located up in the mountains on one of the ridges of Pu'ukamako. And this mo'o's name is Kapualei. Now, one of the bad things associated with mo'o is that, especially the female, mo'o wahine, they have a tendency of luring men to their death. And this has happened several times. And the story that I'm going to be sharing with you is a story that was very suspicious, and people still not too sure what happened to it, but many people think that this man who passed away was lured by a mo'o. And this is a story that goes back to the time when I first moved back to Molokai in the 1970s. And when I moved back, there was this man that was working for the Board of Water Supply. And one of his jobs was to go around the islands and check the intakes. And if the intakes from the water sources are plugged, you run out of water, yeah? So his job was to make sure that the intakes that the Board of Water Supply had was clear of debris, and so that people could turn on a faucet and get their water. So that was his job. And so one day he went out, go checking all of these different places, and at the end of the day, the bosses started looking for him and said, "Hey, what happened to this man?" And so they looked around, they couldn't find his truck. Everything, his personal effects was still there in the office. And so they began to check, the different places. And because it was late, they suspended the final, thorough search until the next day. The next day came, they began searching, and finally, they decided to go up to a place called Kalai. Now, Kalai is a settlement that is right before Palau Park, and Palau Park is the place where you go if you want to go down to Kalaupapa, hike down to Kalaupapa. So it's part of a trail there. Just past Kalai, just north of Kalai, right where there's a mean turn in the road, there's a gate right there, goes into the pasture. And at the end of that road, inside of that gate, is a freshwater lake called Meyer Lake. It does have a Hawaiian name, and I was trying to research this, but I couldn't find it. But everybody on the island knows this place as Meyer Lake. Meyer Lake is a freshwater lake. It's not that big. It's probably about 2, maybe 3 acres at the biggest. And it's kind of long and oval shape. And this water that's in there, I've been there several times, mainly as a scout that we used to go hiking, and that's one of our destinations that we used to go frequently. We used to hike up to the lake, sit down by the lake and eat our lunch and hike out. So this lake is not very pretty. It's not one of those blue color lakes like Lake Tahoe. This is more like chocolate milk, all right? And very uninviting. Anyway, when the water supply people went up to Meyer Lake, they found the man's truck over there, and the door, the driver's side door, was wide open. So they went to the truck, and when they looked inside, they found something really odd. This man had taken off all his clothes. He folded his shirt, folded his underwear, folded his pants, and put them right there on the driver's seat. His shoes neatly put inside the truck, socks inside the shoes, and just like he was going to take a bath or something. But imagine a stark naked person walking into the lake or walking away. So the crew started looking around and trying to find for him. They started calling his name. No response. And finally, after being there for a while, they started looking in the lake, and somebody spotted something floating. They thought it was a stick, but it's floating just below the water surface. And so they walked in, and this lake is not that deep, probably about 4 or 5 feet deep, so you could walk right across if you wanted. So they went in, and this thing that was floating just below the surface was this man. He is dead. He had been drowned. So they pulled him out, and they tried to perform CPR, but he was gone by then. So they anticipate that he was in the water for at least 18 hours, 12 to 18 hours. So they started examining and looking, why would this man take off all his clothes, walk inside this dirty water, and if he was committing suicide, where's his suicide note? There's nothing. He contacted his family to ask what was going on, if there was problems at home. There was no problems at home. Nothing made sense until people began to talk about the mo'o that's in the lake and the habit of this mo'o luring men to their death. And this is what they think. And the jury is still out. When they did an autopsy of this man, there was no foul play. Cause of death, drowning. So the question that we have is, was this man lured into this dirty, soupy water by the mo'o? Why else would he be naked and clothes neatly wrapped and folded and no suicide note? Food for thought. This is Dave Wallace. If you enjoyed this story, please share it with others and subscribe. Aloha.